young and the restless spoilers. The quiet, peaceful atmosphere of the home was shattered by Dominic's frantic cries. Mariah could hear his desperate sobs from the other room, his voice rising in panic as he repeatedly called out for his parents. "Mom, Dad, where are you?" The words were like daggers, each one a reminder of the love he still had for the parents who had, without warning, vanished from his life. Mariah rushed to his side, her heart tightening with each anguished cry. She knew this moment would come. The fear, the confusion, she had anticipated it all. But nothing could prepare her for the weight of his pain. As she reached his side, she knelt down, pulling him into her arms, trying desperately to calm him. "Dominic, sweetheart," she whispered, her voice trembling. "It's okay. Everything is going to be okay. You're with me now." But Dominic didn't seem to hear her. His little body shook with emotion as he continued to sob uncontrollably. "Where's Dad? Where's Mom? I want to go home." His words pierced her heart like a sharp knife, and for a brief moment, Mariah found herself paralyzed by the overwhelming guilt that consumed her. This wasn't supposed to be how it ended. She wasn't supposed to be the one to tear a family apart. But deep down, she knew she couldn't turn back now. She had made her choice. She wiped the tears from Dominic's face, trying to force a reassuring smile. But inside, she was anything but calm. "Dominic," she said softly, "your mom and dad, they've been very busy with something important, and they've decided to have another baby. So now you're going to stay with me. It's just you and me now, okay?" Dominic's eyes widened, confusion clouding his young features. "A new baby," he repeated, his voice shaky. "But I don't want a new baby. I want my mom and dad." Mariah's chest tightened. Every word he spoke felt like a weight pressing down on her. How could she do this to him? How could she be the one to lie to him, to make him believe in something that wasn't true? But she had no choice. She had already gone too far. "You'll see them again soon, sweetie," Mariah added, trying to sound convincing, even though her own words felt hollow. "They just need some time to adjust. But for now, I'll take care of you. You're safe here with me." Dominic didn't seem reassured. He struggled against her embrace, still crying, his small hands pushing at her chest. "I want to see my mommy and daddy. I want them now. Where are they?" His voice was rising in pitch, more frantic now. Mariah's guilt gnawed at her insides as she held him tighter, wishing more than anything that she could turn back time and undo the chaos she had caused. She knew she was only making it worse for him, but Ian's words echoed in her mind, words that she had heard over and over again, words that had become a twisted mantra in her head. "Keep him with you," Ian had told her, his voice low and filled with that sickening manipulation. "You're doing the right thing, Mariah. You're protecting him. They'll never understand what's best for him, but you will. You've always been the one to look out for him. You can't let them take him back. Not now, not ever." The memory of Ian's haunting voice seemed to invade her thoughts like a dark cloud, pushing her resolve further. She had always trusted Ian, always believed in his guidance. And now, as Dominic's cries continued to pierce her heart, she couldn't help but wonder if he was right. Was she doing the right thing? Was she really protecting Dominic by keeping him from his parents? Or was she simply perpetuating a lie that would destroy them all? Just as she was about to pull Dominic into another tight hug, a flicker of movement caught her eye, a shadow in the corner of the room. The air grew colder, and for a brief moment, Mariah thought she saw Ian's distorted figure standing before her. His presence was no longer a mere memory. It was as though he was right there in the room, watching her every move. "Don't second-guess yourself, Mariah," Ian's voice whispered in her ear. "You're doing exactly what needs to be done. They don't understand, but you do." Mariah froze, her heart racing as she looked around, trying to shake the feeling of his presence. But there was no one there, just the empty space, the dark shadows, and the weight of Dominic's cries. "Everything will be fine," she muttered under her breath, her hands trembling as she continued to hold him. "Everything will be fine." Meanwhile, back at Abby and Devon's home, chaos had erupted. The moment they realized Dominic was missing, panic set in. Abby's heart pounded in her chest as she ran through the house, searching every room, her mind racing with fear and disbelief. "Where is he? Where's my baby?" she cried out, her voice trembling with desperation. Devin was right beside her, his face pale, his eyes wide with terror. "He has to be here somewhere, Abby," he said, his voice strained. "He couldn't have just disappeared. He's gotta be here." But no matter where they looked, Dominic was nowhere to be found. Their frantic searching turned into a hopeless search for answers, with every call to the police only deepening their sense of dread. Hours passed, and still, there was no sign of their son. Abby's phone rang, breaking the silence of their search. She grabbed it immediately, her fingers trembling as she answered. "Hello." The voice on the other end was distorted, almost mechanical, but Abby immediately recognized it. "Abby, Devin," the voice sneered, "you're never going to see Dominic again. Your precious Mariah has him now. She's the one who took him." Abby's heart dropped into her stomach as the weight of the words sank in. Mariah had taken their son. The realization hit her like a ton of bricks, and for a moment, she couldn't breathe. What do you mean?" Devin's voice was low, almost a whisper, as if he were trying to process the unbelievable truth. "What are you talking about? She's protecting him from you," the voice continued, almost taunting them. "She's doing what's best for him, and you'll never get him back." The line went dead. Abby dropped to her knees, her hands shaking as the world around her seemed to collapse. No, this can't be happening," she whispered, her voice cracking. "It's not possible." Devin stood frozen in place, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Mariah, why would she do this?" Neither of them had an answer, and neither of them could comprehend the depth of the betrayal they were facing. Their son, their beautiful boy, was gone, and the woman they had trusted, the woman who had once been part of their family, was the one responsible. Back in the darkened room, Mariah clutched Dominic tighter, her eyes wide as she listened to the sound of his continued sobs. She truly believed that she was protecting him, that by keeping him with her, she was sparing him from the heartbreak and instability that his parents could not provide. But deep down, the realization was starting to set in, was only feeding into the darkness that Ian had planted in her mind. She was lost, and she had lost Dominic too. "I'm sorry," she whispered to him, though her words barely reached her own ears. "I'm so sorry." But in that moment, she wasn't sure anymore if she was apologizing to Dominic, to herself, or to the people she had betrayed. Dominic's cries echoed in her ears as she rocked him back and forth, his words a constant reminder of the truth she could no longer ignore. She had taken something precious from them all, and now she didn't know how to get it back. As the night dragged on, the silence in the room felt suffocating. Mariah was left alone in the darkness with Dominic, the weight of her choices crashing down on her. She had no way out, no way to undo what she had done. She could only hold on, hoping that in the end, she would find a way to make it right. But she knew, deep in her heart, that the damage had already been done, and for the first time, Mariah wasn't sure if there was a way back. The air in the motel room was stale, heavy with the scent of old carpet and the faint, metallic tang of fear. Dominic blinked, his eyes open, the scratchy wool blanket pulled up to his chin. The room was dim, illuminated only by the flickering neon sign outside that cast intermittent, blood-red shadows across the peeling wallpaper. He remained perfectly still, a survival instinct kicking in despite his young age. Mariah was sitting in the corner, her back to him, rocking slightly in the rickety wooden chair. She wasn't alone here, at least. She didn't think she was. "He doesn't need to know, Ian," Mariah whispered, her voice trembling with a mixture of reverence and terror. "He's just a boy." Dominic's breath hitched. He couldn't see anyone else in the room, but Mariah was looking intently at the empty space by the window, her eyes wide and glassy. "New parents," Mariah murmured, nodding as if agreeing to a reasonable point. Yes, I see that now. They don't need him anymore. Abby and Devin, they have their lives. And one, I can't be what he needs if I'm broken." The words hit Dominic like a physical blow. Not need him anymore. The concept was too big, too dark for his mind to fully grasp. But the feeling it invoked was unmistakable, the cold, hollow ache of abandonment. He watched Mariah, the woman who had always been a source of warmth and laughter, his Mimino transformed into this stranger who spoke to ghosts. He's better off, Mariah continued, her voice taking on a flat, monotone quality that was more terrifying than her shouting. If I leave him here, someone will find him, someone better, and I can finally stop the noise. She was talking about leaving him. The realization sent a spike of adrenaline through Dominic's small chest. He squeezed his eyes shut as Mariah turned her head slightly, afraid she might see he was awake. Sleep now, Mariah, she whispered to herself, or perhaps repeating a command from the shadows she called Ian. Just close your eyes. The work is done. Dominic waited, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. He watched through the slit of his eyelids as Mariah slumped forward, her head resting on her arms against the small table. Her breathing slowed, deepening into the rhythm of exhaustion. The figure she had been talking to with invisible eyes seemed to release his hold on her as she drifted into unconsciousness. The silence that followed was deafening. Dominic pushed the blanket down slowly, the fabric rustling softly. He froze, eyes starting to Mariah. She didn't stir. The fear was still there, a cold knot in his stomach, but a new resolve was hardening over it. He couldn't stay. If he stayed, he would be left behind, or worse. He had to save himself. He slid his legs off the bed, his socks hitting the cold linoleum floor. The room was an obstacle course of shadows. He had to navigate past the table where Mariah slept, past the clutter of bags she had frantically packed. Dominic took a step, then another. His foot brushed against a discarded fast food wrapper, the crinkle sounding like a gunshot in the quiet room. He bit his lip, holding his breath. Mariah shifted, murmuring something unintelligible, but she didn't wake. Dominic exhaled slowly, his small hands balling into fists. He reached the door. It was a heavy slab of wood with a chain lock and a deadbolt. He had seen his father, Devin, lock doors 1,000 times, but he was small, and the locks were high. He dragged a sturdy suitcase from near the closet, wincing as the wheels squeaked. He climbed onto it, balancing precariously. His fingers fumbled with the deadbolt. It was stiff. He pushed with all his might, his face scrunching with effort, until it clicked back with a dull thud. Next, the chain. He slid it across the track, the metal scraping softly. He was free. Dominic turned the handle and pushed. The cold night air rushed in, biting at his exposed skin. It smelled of exhaust and damp earth. He looked back one last time at Mariah, slumped and defeated in the chair. A tear leaked from his eye, hot and stinging, but he wiped it away. He stepped out into the night, the heavy door clicking shut behind him, leaving the warmth and the madness behind. The fluorescent lights of the Y&R City police station hummed with an oppressive, clinical whir. In the interrogation room, the atmosphere was suffocating. Tessa Porter sat at the metal table, her hands clasping a styrofoam cup of lukewarm coffee so tightly her knuckles were white. Beside her, Daniel Romalotti looked equally haggard, his usual easygoing demeanor replaced by a rigid tension. Detective Chance Chancellor stood on the other side of the glass, but inside the room, a uniformed officer was taking notes. "We need to go over the timeline again," the officer said, his tone not unkind but firm. "When did you first notice Mariah acting erratic?" Tessa let out a shaky breath, her eyes red-rimmed. "It wasn't all at once. It was a slow burn, but the last few days, it was like looking at a stranger wearing my wife's face. She was talking to people who weren't there." Daniel interjected, his voice rough. He reached out, his hand hovering near Tessa's arm before resting on the table, a silent offer of support. Specifically Ian Ward. She kept mentioning his name. The officer looked up, pen pausing. "Ian Ward, you're certain?" "Dead certain," Tessa whispered. She would wake up in the middle of the night, screaming at him to leave her alone. Then she'd start bargaining with him. "She told me he was in the house, that he was watching Arya, watching Dominic. I tried to tell her he's gone, that he can't hurt us anymore. but she looked right through me. It's the trauma, Daniel said, leaning forward. She's been spiraling for weeks. We tried to get her help, tried to get her to see a therapist, but she was paranoid. She thought everyone was conspiring with Ian. Tessa nodded, a tear slipping down her cheek. She started pulling away from me, from Arya. She wouldn't let me touch her. She said she was poisoned by him and didn't want to infect us. But then she fixated on Dominic. Fixated how? The officer asked. She kept saying he was in danger. Daniel explained, frustration bleeding into his voice, that the only way to protect him was to take him away from the bad influences. We thought she meant, I don't know, the media, or the stress of the family business. We didn't think she meant us. Tessa buried her face in her hands. I should have stopped her. I saw her packing a bag yesterday. She told me she was donating old clothes. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted so badly for things to be normal that I ignored the look in her eyes. It was vacant, officer. Like the Mariah I love was trapped behind a wall of glass, screaming for help while her body did these terrible things. She's not a criminal, Daniel insisted, turning his gaze to the two-way mirror, as if pleading with Chance directly. She is having a psychotic break. She thinks she's saving that boy. In her mind, Ian Ward is telling her that taking Dominic is the only way to keep him safe. You have to understand she's terrified. She's not acting out of malice. She's acting out of fear. We just want them back safe. Tessa sobbed, her composure finally shattering. Please, Dominic is just a little boy. And Mariah, she's sick. She needs a hospital, not a jail cell. If Ian is in her head, she's living in a nightmare we can't even imagine. Daniel placed a comforting hand on Tessa's shoulder, squeezing gently. She mentioned a safe place a few days ago. He told the officer, somewhere Ian couldn't find them. But then she said Ian was the one guiding her. It's contradictory. It's chaotic. That's her state of mind right now. The officer nodded slowly, closing his notebook. We're doing everything we can, Ms. Porter, Mr. Roma Lodi. We have a PBS out. We'll find them. As the officer exited, leaving them alone in the stark room, Tessa looked at Daniel, her eyes wide with a haunting realization. If she thinks Ian is telling her what to do, she whispered, her voice barely audible. What happens when he tells her that she's failed? What happens to Dominic then? Daniel didn't have an answer. He just stared at the gray wall, the silence of the room amplifying the dread that hung between them. Somewhere out in the cold, a little boy was running, and a woman was trapped in a prison of her own mind, with a ghost holding the key.